Joining me now is Minnesota Democratic Congresswoman Angie Craig. She has a busy recess planned with 4 in-person town halls scheduled in districts held by Minnesota Republicans. Congresswoman Craig, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So let's start with these town halls. As you know, some of your Republican colleagues are actually criticizing you for doing this. They are accusing you of campaigning as you contemplate the possibility of running for higher office. How do you respond to that? What is your goal in holding these town halls?
Well, every constituent, every person in Minnesota deserves to have a member of Congress, particularly in today's day and time, show up and answer questions for them. And I've said if my Republican colleagues won't hold in-person town halls in their own congressional districts, then I'll do it for them. And if they want to announce this week that they're going to do town halls in person in their own districts, I'll be happy to stay in the 2nd district.
Let me put up something that you wrote in an op-ed in the Minnesota Star Tribune and kind of get your thoughts on the other side. You write, instead of standing up for their constituents against these reckless tariffs and workforce cuts, House Republicans seem hell-bent on advancing the president's agenda and screwing over middle-class Minnesotans in the process. It is worth noting President Trump did run on implementing tariffs, cutting the government, these very issues that we are now seeing him carry out. What do you say to Republicans who say, this is what we voted for?
Well, he also campaigned on lowering cost for everyday Americans. And, you know, I don't think that this is what a number of people who voted for Donald Trump voted for. I think the impression was, which I wouldn't have disagreed with, that we work with our allies to take on China, perhaps strategic tariffs, but that's not what we're getting. And I don't think this is what people thought we were going to get. We're getting across-the-board tariffs leading to a trade war, a global trade war like we've never seen, which is going to drive up costs. And in the context of all of this, they're trying to pass a budget plan that is also going to cost people more money and certainly going to be offset by the additional cost of everyday goods. So, I mean, I don't think this is what a lot of his voters voted for. And how it's playing out is very reckless to the American economy.
As you know, and I was just discussing this with Ryan, a lot of Democrats want their leaders, want all of you in elected office to have a more forceful, unified message and strategy. We know what Democrats are against cuts to Medicaid and Social Security, against Elon Musk's Doge cuts. But can you whittle this down? What is the main message from Democrats right now? What is it that you all are for?
Well, I think we ought to be for fighting for the middle class. The middle class has got to call the shots in this country again. Our message has got to be around the economy. The most expensive thing in someone's life today is it's housing, it's health care, it's child care cost. At the end of the day, how can we put more money in people's pockets and lower costs in our country? This is what the president ran on. And of course, this isn't what he's doing at all. I think we need an economic message. I introduced a bill this week, in fact, that on tax day, that would stop seniors paying taxes on their federal Social Security income. That's what it looks like to support a tax bill that puts more money in people's pockets.
Well, you know, you take me to my next question, Congresswoman, because you are saying the economy should be front and center. As you know, one of the big issues in focus right now is the issue of the case of Mr. Abrego Garcia with Senate Democrat Chris Van Hollen in El Salvador, looking for information about him. Other Democrats saying they plan to travel there. Here's what one House Democrat told Axios. A House Democrat who spoke anonymously, a centrist, called the deportation issue, quote, a soup du jour, arguing Trump is setting a trap for the Democrats, and like usual, we are falling for it. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Well, look, I think that this particular case and the idea of everyone who's in this country should receive due process, that's part of what it is to be in America. I think it is important just from a process perspective. And of course, everyone deserves due process, including Mr. Garcia. That is a fundamental American way of thinking. And at the end of the day, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. If I spend 80% of my time talking about economic issues, whether my family farmers or receiving retaliatory tariffs, whether or not the middle class is getting screwed in this country, and I can also at the same time say we have to have due process in this country.
You know, last month you talked about the importance of the border to your constituents. If you do look at the data, border crossings are down. They're just a fraction of what they were so far in 2025 compared to 2024. Is that something that you give the Trump administration credit for? How do you see that?
Well, look, I've said for years now that we have to have a secure border, but we also have to have a humane immigration system where we are processing these cases much more quickly. And so I do think that we had to secure the southern border, but we also need to work together to make sure that there is a big gate on the southern border so that we can have legal immigration to our country. I met today with the Minneapolis Fed Chair President Neil Kaskari, and we had a long conversation about the fact that we need immigrants in our country if our economy is going to grow. We certainly ought to know who's coming across the southern border, but we're America. We can do both. We shouldn't have to choose.
I want to ask you about your political future, Congresswoman. You have said you will make a decision by the end of the month about whether you plan to run for Senate. We're almost there. So have you made your decision? Are you planning to run for the Senate?
Well, what I've said in the last few days is I will make an announcement by the end of the month. So more to come, but I look forward to talking to the people of Minnesota about my plans for 2026 really soon.
So you've made your decision?
I'll announce my decision once I make it before the end of the month. But good try.
Thank you. I had to try, Congresswoman. I had to try. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. When you make your decision, come on back and join us again. We really appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.